The real key to success and to being an effective content marketer is to say, whatever tactic I'm using, if it's a newsletter, if it's an in-person event, if it's an illustration or photo, you name it. Am I using it as effectively as I could? And that's the key. That's the key. Many of these tactics I've used over the years, and one of the things we've learned is that you can, again, check something off the list and say, have you done X? And you can say, yeah, I did X. And if you do it and you do it in an ineffective way, you can certainly say you did it, but it doesn't move the needle. So one of the things that we're going to share with you in this module is not just the list, so that you can make sure, okay, in my content marketing campaign, how many things have I done? How many boxes have I ticked off? We're going to talk about each one of them in a way that can help you use it more effectively. Whether you use this entire list or part of the list, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do use, let's make sure you're using it effectively. So I want to start off with one of the tactics that's been on this list for well over 5 years. And it's always at the top. If it's not number one, it's number two. And it's a surprise for some people because it's email newsletters, which is a really, really old tactic. Email newsletters have been around for 20 years. And one of the things that I hope this sort of illustrates is it doesn't matter whether it's the new, bright, shiny thing that just got unveiled last week, or it's been around for 20 years. Some things have been around 20 years because they still work. And people have a learning curve, and they've learned how to make them work even more effectively. Or, as in the case of email newsletters, they've gone through purgatory as things like Gmail changed the rules of how email gets delivered, and you've had to go back and rethink what you're doing. And the net is the folks who are doing email marketing and are using email newsletters effectively have made the appropriate adjustments. So what are the keys to being successful with this tactic? Well, first of all, you want to foster a sense of belonging. In other words, there are some email newsletters I look to receiving every morning. And if they are delayed for some reason, it's like I'm missing them. It's like, wait a second, how come that hasn't come in yet? That's not true of every email newsletter. And that expectation that I rely on this, I want to receive it, and let me give you a real-life example. I subscribe to the Boston Globe newspaper's newsletter. Now, I also get the print edition delivered to my home, but I get the email version a couple of hours actually before the print version is delivered on my doorstep. And I tend to get up early in the morning, and I rely on that. It gives me a sort of the news of the day, what's important in my area, and I can concentrate on that before, quote, starting the day to do work for my company or my clients. Well, it was late this morning. I knew it. It's like, where is it? And that sense of this is essential reading for me is something that you need to strive to achieve if you're going to be using newsletters effectively. And the reason you can get there is dependent on the content. If all you're doing is regurgitating the latest press releases from your company, that's not particularly compelling. If you are providing insights and useful tips and the latest trends, now you've got something. So again, content is key, and it's not just the newsletter delivery format, which still works. But the key is putting the effort into thinking, what are the various articles going to be? So provide exclusive content or some benefits that can't be found anywhere else. That's the key to making this tactic work. And yes, you can do some progressive profiling. You can try to figure out if some people are more interested in some areas of your newsletter than others, and perhaps that's an opportunity for you to tailor specific messages to segments of your subscriber list. All of that is useful, all of that is best practice, and all of that then takes this tactic to the highest level of its use. Another item that has always been at the top of these lists of effective tactics, at least in all the research that I've seen, are in-person events. And there are some marketers out there that say, wait a second, isn't this digital marketing? Aren't we supposed to be focused on things that are happening online? And the answer is, for content marketers, yes, a lot of the content that you'll be creating is digital, but a face-to-face event, if it is still the most effective tool in your arsenal, and research indicates that for a lot of people it is, then put the effort into thinking about it. In other words, you can, quote, have a trade show booth, and it can be there on the trade show floor, and a few people may walk by it occasionally, and you can say, well, I was there. And the answer is no, that's not particularly effective, is it? When we have exhibited at trade shows or conferences, one of the things that we work on really hard is to make sure that either we have speakers from the company or brand who are also on the conference side of the event, or if we don't have enough speakers to sort of make sure that our message is getting out, or the stories that we want to tell are being told, then we identify who the speakers are at that conference who might be interested in receiving information from us ahead of time. That could be, new research data that we have, some new case studies that we're willing to share. And what we have seen is when we work that event effectively, people come out of those sessions and then come down to our trade show booth and say, I just heard about you in the last session. Tell me what you got. Okay, so that is working the event effectively. And again, there's lots of ways to keep that conversation going. And it's the beginning of building a relationship. So it's not just about collecting their business cards and saying how big is the list. Let them know. I can continue keeping you updated. Would you like to receive our newsletter? And there's a lot of things that you can do with those conference presentations that you've given. We'll get to this later in this session. You can put them online. You can put them on SlideShare. And it doesn't always have to be about your presentations. If somebody else gives a really good presentation that actually, makes a key point about your category or market, and doesn't necessarily even have to mention you. Sometimes that's worth highlighting and featuring as well. It may be the beginning of building a relationship with that speaker. So again, take advantage of the events that are part of your strategy. Just because they're not digital doesn't mean they shouldn't be integrated into what you're thinking. A speech at a conference is content. All right. I'm a former speechwriter, so we put great thought into what an executive was going to say at a particular event, it was always customized. We didn't have the same speech that we recycled over and over and over again, because we wanted to take advantage of that unique opportunity to deliver that piece of content. And, you should take that advice as well. Now, social media content has been all the rage for years and years, and so it's not surprising that B2B and B2C marketers rate it as something that they want to use as a tactic. It has been, and I know in some organizations it's like, well, wait a second, the social media group is down the hall. There's somebody else. I don't want to tread on their toes. The answer is no. The social media people down the hall shouldn't be down the hall. They should be all part of the content marketing effort. Their content is one of the ways that you can reach out to a variety of audiences, and make sure that each one of those platforms, those social media platforms that you're using, are effectively communicating the company's message. They shouldn't be islands to themselves. If you've got, for example, a YouTube channel, it shouldn't be detached from the content marketing effort. They shouldn't be creating videos on some subject that's unrelated to what your content marketing mission is all about. And yes, different platforms work different ways. So you may want to create different kinds of content. Although, if you step back and look at the trends, it turns out once upon a time, the only place you really put video was on YouTube. It turns out over the last couple of years, Facebook has aggressively gotten into the video field. And so you certainly want to include videos on your Facebook platform. Twitter has followed suit. So guess what? You're going to want to think about the videos that you've got on Twitter, etc., etc. You can share videos to Pinterest. You can share videos to LinkedIn. You can create videos on Instagram. So again, yes, there are differences between the platforms, but increasingly visual content is becoming a key in all of those. And every now and then, it's good to try something that you haven't done before. And if you do it on a small scale, it's a test. Even if it doesn't work, you've just learned something. Okay, that didn't work. We won't do that again. And that is a little hard for people in business to do, is to say, well, wait a second, you want me to deliberately fail? No. I want you to deliberately try something you haven't done before. That, in business, every now and then you've got to sort of test the boundaries. You've got to test the assumptions that you're making. And you can do that. And as long as it is a test where you measure the results, then you're not just doing stuff, willy-nilly. You are actually exploring, did I get a higher than expected response rate when I did that? Is this a tactic that I may want to do some more? And the only way you're going to find out is if you're always conducting tests. A lot of B2B marketers think, time out, that's a B2C tactic. And the answer is, sometimes it is. But I will tell you, LinkedIn, which is often overlooked in B2C marketing, is a perfect spot for a social media content campaign in B2B. The people who LinkedIn attracts are all business professionals. And one of the things that we've done successfully again and again, and this is an example of it here, we do work with the Rutgers School of Management and Labor Relations, so it's SMLR. They wanted to reach out to human resource professionals, particularly the ones that could send groups of students from a company to attend courses at Rutgers. So this is a business-to-business kind of situation. And this was put together by the what is called EPE, or the Executive and Professional Education group within Rutgers SMLR. And so how do you get those folks? Well, it's not something you can do a lot of cold calling on. That's hard. But what we did instead is we created a LinkedIn group, and we asked the hard question: what would a busy professional want to do on LinkedIn? What would they want access to that would have them join a group? Because we're all busy people. And what we decided was the key piece of content that people would kill for was research, particularly if you've got the latest research on, let's say, workforce developments. So that's what we created a LinkedIn group around. And we said, by the way, we're going to set this up. Yes, we're Rutgers. Yes, we're SMLR. Yes, we're at EPE. We're not trying to pretend we're not. But what we really want to do is to share with you some of the latest research, but get your feedback on it. What do you think? Did we ask the right questions? Are you seeing other developments in the industry that we've missed? And over an incredibly short period of time, we built that community to more than 2,000 members, all of whom are the right target audience, because you wouldn't be interested in this topic if you weren't a member of the right target audience. And they are contributing, and they are interacting, and they are building relationships, and along the way, they are discovering that, Rutgers is offering some new kinds of courses I didn't know about. And this might be something worth sending some of my students to. One of the most recent ones that we were promoting had to do with women executives learning how to break through the glass ceiling. Well, think about that. Anyone who's in HR is wrestling with that issue. Oh, you've started a new program to tackle that tough problem? Cool. I know some women executives at a junior level who I want to make sure get the kind of development they need to go forward. Well, that's how you then basically leverage content in a social media platform that generates leads. It's doable. It's just stop thinking about it. This is just simply, we tried Twitter, it didn't work. This is, think about it again. Social media content can be incredibly effective, particularly if you put the thought into it and take it to the next level. This is something that has come on in the last couple of years in terms of its popularity and its effectiveness, and their online presentations. And I know many of us give PowerPoint presentations all the time, and unfortunately, most PowerPoint sucks. I mean, I can't put it more mildly than that. If you've got a bad presentation, putting it online is not magic. It doesn't suddenly transform into something that is much more interesting. On the other hand, if you've got a really compelling presentation, one that one of your executives used and people really responded to, putting it online now takes that effective communication device and expands the audience. And how far can you expand the audience? Let me give you this example. It's the 2016 Internet Trends Report that Mary Meeker presented in June of 2016. It's her latest trends in the industry. There are 213 slides. It is not a short presentation. But look at this. Over 1.7 million people have downloaded this presentation. I downloaded this presentation. I wrote a blog post for one of the blogs that I write for because the data in this is so rich. And I basically said, even if you don't have time to read all 213 slides, here are the 10 that you absolutely positively have to know about. So again, something that a lot of people don't think about should probably be part of your content marketing mix. And again, you can use SlideShare. It's got over 70 million users. You definitely want to make sure that your title slide, which is what people will see first, grabs people's attention. It helps if you've got a story that you're telling. Now, Mary's happens to be longer and more detailed than most. But guess what? It's sort of organized into four key trend areas, and so you can understand the arc of even her long presentation. And sometimes you want to emphasize imagery over text, but it doesn't hurt to have text there too. As you can see by my style that I've got here in this presentation, I've got the image. I find that that's sort of the right balance. And make sure if you're going to create one of these that you've got a clickable call to action link in your slides. It can be near the end if you want. That will take you to a landing page on your website if people are interested in more information on this presentation, this trend, this new product announcement, whatever it is that you're unveiling. This is a really effective tactic to be using. Now, microsites is another tactic that people have used from time to time. There are a number of companies and a number of brands that have used microsites incredibly effectively. So it's an option. It may not be something that you want to use every time, but it's one that you ought to be able to think about and know when and how to use it when it happens. And the example I'm trying to show here is one of called Share a Coke. This was a campaign that actually was tested initially in Australia. It was so successful, it then rolled out across the rest of the world. And what they basically said is, don't just buy our product, which is what everybody says, right? What they said is, if you want, you can buy this Coca-Cola and it'll have a message on it. And the message here was either, you're the best mom, or you're my best friend forever, or they even went on to customize it. So this is for the Williams family. And you know what? It got right down to where you could address it for an individual name. And there was a cost associated with this customization. But it turned out people were willing to pay the cost. That was the surprise. That's why it started off as a microsite. This is not something that you wanted to, launch broadly on day one. So the microsite was actually a clever way to test to see if this would work. Let's go down and see if it works in Australia. If it does, then we can roll it out. If it doesn't, well, it's not there on the home page of the main site. Okay, so again, clever strategy. And in this case, because it's a microsite, you don't have to appeal to all of your different customer segments. You can pick one or two key personas. Let's see if it works here before we come up with variations on this theme. It really helps if the microsite has some features in it that will drive participation in some way, because if all you can tell is, oh, by the way, I got so many people visited this microsite, okay, well, what would have happened if they had visited the main site instead? In other words, go beyond the traffic. Make sure that whatever you're creating has other goals than just a visit. And make sure that if, again, this is targeted, keep it focused. And if you've attracted an audience, don't abandon them. You're now committed to this microsite. You're going to have to keep it year after year after year. You can't walk away from it. So it's going to become a permanent part of your portfolio. So think about all of that, but this is a tactic you might want to consider. And blogs are key. If you don't have a blog as part of your B2C and B2B content marketing programs, start one. If you have one, go and check out what you're doing. Because there are a lot of people who say you need a blog, and they added a blog, and if you look at it, this blog isn't worth reading. You know what? We tried to do this on the cheap. We post occasionally, and what we post is only about us, and by the way, it's not particularly interesting. So it's not good enough to say, I got a blog. Make sure that this one sizzles. Make sure that if you've got content in it, that your headlines aren't killing the potential for somebody to click on that headline and read the full post. It turns out most people will scan your headline and decide whether to read it or not. So put the extra effort into your headline. Make sure that, there are a lot of people who are going to be busy. So summarize the main point at the beginning of your post so they can get the gist of it and figure out, is this worth reading, or do I want to back out of here right now? Let them know what you're going to tell them. Reinforce your message with images in the post. It's impossible for me to turn in a blog post these days to any of the clients that I work with or for, or even some of the blogs that I just write for, without an image. My editor will turn it back and say, "Where's the image?" It's and sometimes that can be a video instead of a photo. But there isn't a post these days that I can write, or I don't have to spend some time thinking about the graphic that goes with it. Make sure that you've restated key points in a bulleted list, particularly near the end where, let's say, you're summarizing the key takeaways. Make sure you're using subheads so you're not just regurgitating a bunch of content, and summarize at the end. Provide a conclusion. That then can take the content that you're delivering and make it digestible. And so the point here isn't I've written some blog posts. Why, I wrote one a week last year. Yeah, How many of them are memorable? How many did people take action on? How many, generated leads that we hadn't seen before? That's a whole different level that you need to take your blog to for it to be effective. Now, this may be a surprise. Print magazines, again, in a digital world that we're living in, pardon me, you're telling me print works? I thought print was dead. Well, the answer is it's not dead yet. It may die someday, but it's not dead yet. And the example that I've shown here is actually the oldest content marketing campaign that is still running because it's still working. The Furrow was launched in 1895. And it provided basically farmers with practical advice on how to get more out of their farming. And it was made by the people who made plows, okay? And they wanted you to buy their plow, but, how much can you tell people about a plow to sort of differentiate it from the, quote, other plows that they might have purchased instead? Well, what John Deere did was to say, yeah, we've got great plows, but guess what? We're also going to tell you how to use them more effectively. And that basically differentiated them in the market. It's why the company is still around all these years later. It's why the magazine is still around all these years later. And if you want to subscribe to the magazine, you can't. You have to go to a John Deere dealer in order to get access to the magazine, because John Deere wants to use it as a way of getting people to walk into basically a place that can sell them a plow, or in these days, modern farming equipment. So again, just because it's print doesn't mean it's dead. Make sure that if you're going to design a magazine like this, that you've got someone designing it who has experience, and make sure that it's visual and you're taking advantage of the magazine format. Make sure that the articles that you're writing are relevant. It needs to be on topic, whatever your topic happens to be. And it also helps if there is a digital version that's easily available. In this case, it's only available if you have the subscription, but then the subscription gives you, with a password, access to the digital version. Why? Because guess what? The farmers who are out in the fields plowing have smartphones, and there was that article that I read the other day, and they can get access to it in their tractor from their smartphone. So again, The world may evolve, but some tactics continue to work year after year, decade after decade. Books work. I know. This is the digital age. But guess what? Amazon.com taught all of us that people still want to read books. Who knew? Well, I've written books. This is the second edition of YouTube and video marketing. Books work. Now, I can hear some of you saying, "Oh, you got to be kidding me. I don't have time to write a book." And so there are ways to write books. Sometimes you need a co-author. That's one way to do it. I found the time to write a book by writing it on weekends. And so I structured the time with my publisher as such that I'm going to turn in a chapter, basically a chapter a month. And that then gave me 4 weekends to write parts of that chapter. And, over the course of about 10 months, I was able to put together a book. So, again, it's not trivial. It's not something you can easily knock off. But guess what? A lot of people say, "Oh, wow, you've written books. You must be an expert in this field." Well, it helps if you're an expert when you write a book. If you write a book and you're not an expert, it's going to show pretty quickly. I have some friends who have written versions of books for the Dummies series. So the Dummies Guide to, whatever. And interestingly enough, they're experts. It's actually harder for an expert to dumb stuff down than it is for the expert to speak in the expert's jargon and assume everyone else is going to catch up to them. So whatever. Books are a great tactic. The key, though, even if you self-publish, is to have a great editor. And by the way, despite what you've heard, you can't judge a book by its cover. People do judge books by their cover. So, if there's one place that you really, really, really want to focus on, make sure that you've got a killer cover design. And it helps if you've got a series. Yeah, it's hard enough to write a book, but guess what? My book was part of the Hour a Day series. So mine was YouTube and video marketing, an hour a day. There's also Facebook marketing, an hour a day. There is Pinterest marketing, an hour a day. There is web analytics, an hour a day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, it was part of a series. So people who wanted to learn about video could do that. They could read my book, but they could read my colleague's book on a related topic. And so again, that is another way of sort of making sure that you're, they bundled 4 of our books together and sold it as a set. And that's because it was part of a series. So, think about that. It's a really effective tactic if you want to establish your authority or your credibility or your expertise in a particular area. Ebooks is another interesting tactic that has emerged over the last couple of years for B2B marketers. And they are shorter than writing a full book, which can take you 9 months or more to write. I know because I've written books. But I've participated in ebooks in writing them. And one of the ways we did that was we got 8 different experts together. Each one of us contributed a chapter. That then got collected by the publisher who put out an ebook. And you know what? It's a heck of a lot easier writing a chapter than writing a full book. And for the person who may download the ebook, it's like, wow, the thoughts of 8 different experts on this particular topic. That's, even better. So again, you can create these. They can be very effective. And again, you can use them for lead generation. If you want, you can give the ebook away for free. That's fine. Make sure that there is a link particularly near the end of the ebook, so that if people finish, they can click on the link and come back to a page on your website where they can get more information or see the other ebooks that you've also published, whatever. But you can also basically put them behind a lead registration form. If you want our free ebook, terrific, just fill out this form. Most people understand that process these days. They'll respond to it and, collect the information you need in order to qualify your prospects. Your sales force will hate it if you just dump a lot of names on them without any indications of, excuse me, where are they in the buying cycle, what kind of budget do they have. So there's some information you may want to have in the form to make sure that when someone downloads your ebook, that you're helping to qualify the prospect that you're going to have somebody either in telesales or, face-to-face sales follow up with. But guess what? Ebooks work. Ebooks work as an effective tactic. Virtual conferences is another thing that sort of popped up recently in the to-do list for some B2B marketers. I have to say I've attended a couple. One was really a well-organized event and good use of my time. The other, not so much. So, this is an area where, maybe the people who are putting together virtual conferences are still trying to invent the wheel. Maybe after it gets invented, the wheel will get you where you want to go a little more frequently. But if you're going to put one of these on, if you're going to organize one for your company, make sure to book and confirm the speakers as early as possible. The one that I went to that was not so successful was getting the speakers posted at the last minute. Well, pardon me, if I'm going to block out some time to attend one of these things, even if it's online, I got to know that it's going to be worth my time. So that was a kneecapper right from the beginning. And again, it's still early days for these things. So you're going to have to double and triple check your technology just to make sure that people who attend your virtual conference can get into it and realize that it's not just about the time zone you live in. People will attend a virtual conference from anywhere around the world. So your opening hours and your closing hours may need to get adjusted accordingly. And, provide some way to extend that experience. If you're going to put all the effort into creating one of these things, make sure that people who can't attend it in real time as it's happening can get access to archived versions of it, again, if they register and give you their contact information. Again, this may not be one of the first tactics that you want to use, but it may be an appropriate tactic to use in certain circumstances.
Hey, want to become an expert in digital marketing? Then subscribe to the Simplilearn channel and click here to watch more such videos. To nerd up and get certified in digital marketing, click here.